Okay, so when you talk about people not steeping themselves in the meat and potatoes of what the current events are, past events, and an example of how detrimental that is Colin Powell being able to pull the wool over people's eyes when he's defending the Iraq war to the country, to the world. What is...
Well, he didn't fool the world.
Yeah, well...
He fooled a lot of Americans.
What is a more pedestrian way of that happening? You know, like, how does that happen on a smaller scale, in daily life, people that we know?
People that we know. I'm not going to name names here. But it happens all the time. Constantly.
Yeah.
Okay. Galileo Galilei and Isaac Newton are two scientists from the 1600s, right? What do they do as scientists? And people, I think particularly on the right, for some reason, just like people don't understand what journalism is, I feel people popularly don't understand what science is. Mm-hmm. A journalist and a scientist is not going, in their heart of hearts, to assume they know full stop.
Correct.
It's a process.
Correct.
It's a process by which observable truths become revealed and understood as much as we can understand them at this moment. Okay? And someone like Galileo Galilei and Isaac Newton, whatever their findings were based on strenuous tests, mm-hmm. they publish. And even 450 years ago, their findings published are available to people all over the world who have access to books. And therefore, themselves can test what these two guys have already tested and the truths that they have already surmised. So what you have is, again, a patchwork, a network of available information that is testable. And the more people are able to confirm or debunk or test that readily available information, the more we as a society come to realize truths as best as we can tell.
Right.
Okay. So likewise, at any point, someone could have debunked the alleged truths of Isaac Newton and Galileo Galilei.
Right.
People can do that every single day regarding tons of things, big and small, important and not important. Especially today. Because today it's not the 1600s. You don't have to be a man and likely a clergy or an aristocrat who has the luxury to be literate and have access to books. All of us, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, have access to the internet. We all had access to library cards. And we live in a much more free and egalitarian society than the world has ever known in history. So, for instance, okay, I'm a left-winger. I had a colleague at some point during Obama's first term who also was left-wing. And for some reason, we got to talking about the John F. Kennedy assassination. And the guy brings up George H.W. Bush, who's from Texas. Well, from Connecticut, but he ended up building his life in Texas. And he says, oh, well, knowing him. And I said, what do you mean knowing him? Regarding the Kennedy assassination. Well, knowing the Bushes, you know, he was insinuating that they were responsible for Kennedy's assassination, which was in Texas. So I said, no. What about the Bushes? What are you saying? What do you know about the Bushes? And he just said, again, well, knowing them. So I said, so you know nothing about the Bushes. And he said, well, he was the head of the CIA. I said, yes, he was the head of the CIA in the 70s. Based on just what I have a fair understanding of, I don't think that he was even a civil servant in government as early as 1963. If he was, he might have been a representative in the House of Representatives. Again, I don't know how that makes him responsible for the Kennedy assassination. So what do? Okay, for myself, I go home and I go online and I look up George H.W. Bush's biography. I look up first his Wikipedia. I look up the congressional records. I look up the records of local publications in Texas at the time in question, 1963. And what a journalist could have done also, and what I could have done also, is go to Texas and talk to his family, talk to historians, talk to people that were adults at the time and remembered voting for him whenever he entered office. His former colleagues in business, average Joe Schmoes who may have known who he was, what he was doing at the time. You have layers of cross-referencing available to you to learn what I learned and already had a fair understanding of, that he was in private business, and it was in 1966, I think, that he first became a representative in Congress, 3 years after Kennedy was assassinated, and that he wasn't the head of the CIA. I was right until something like 1974. Okay, 11 years after Kennedy was assassinated. Not even an evangelist for his right-wing beliefs, but just a wonk, a peg in the bureaucratic system. He's a pencil pusher. Okay? He's just a guy that shows up to work every day and takes the promotions as they come, ended up being a vice president to a very high-profile president that ended up facing a very poor candidate in the opposite party for president. But again, the bottom line is, I'm not God, and I wasn't there. I can't tell you as if I am an evangelist that I know George H.W. Bush had nothing to do with the assassination of JFK. What I can tell you is, based on a plethora of cross-referenceable information that is readily available to all of us, I have every reason to believe that he had nothing to do with the JFK assassination. And someone who is going out on a limb, out of his way to make one hell of an accusation, has no reason whatsoever to believe the contrary. Just like, again, I'm not God and I wasn't there. I don't know that yesterday Aaron Judge went 1 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, sorry, Mr. Judge, and 1 home run in Yankee Stadium in front of 50,000 fans. I'm not God and I wasn't there. Okay, but I'm reading in Sports Illustrated today the box score. I'm listening to, on the radio, a broadcaster who was at the game. I can listen today and watch the live, the feed of the game from yesterday, and I can maybe talk to 1 to 100 people that were at the game. And what you have are these multiple sources that can be cross-referenced, which in a free society allows you to scrutinize them and come to the reasonable conclusion of what is a surmisable truth to whatever extent we may surmise it